Now, to add or subtract decimal numbers, what do you think the key thing to do here? Let's say I want to add 1.2 plus 3.45. Line them up. What do you mean by line them up? It is, Angel. By from the right or the decimal point? Decimal point. Line them up by the decimal point, exactly. So if you line them up, line the decimal point, the tens on top of the tens, the ones on top of the ones, the whole numbers on top of each other. So 5 plus nothing, which is what? 5. 4 and 2, which is what? 6. Here's a decimal point. 3 and 1, 4. So I'll line them up, and when you line them up, make sure you go by the decimal point. Now let's try another one. 2.7 plus 80.13 plus 5.036. Again, 2.7, here we go. Next number, 80 point. Notice the 0 under the 2 there. 13. The tenth on top of the tenth, the ones on top of the ones, the hundreds on top of the hundreds. 5.036. Here's my decimal point. 6 plus nothing. 6, 3 and 3. 6, 7 and 1. 8, 5 and 2. 7, and there's the 8. 87.866. What about if one of the numbers does not have a decimal? Like this one. 2.367 plus 5 plus 0.413. Yep. So 2.367. Now the other number is 5. Where's the decimal point? The 5, it's always at the end. You can make it 5.0 if you want to, or just 5 point. It really doesn't matter if you make it 5 point or 5.0. So if you don't like the point, that's fine. So if there is no decimal point, it's right at the end. And with that other number, what was it? 0.413. Now, some people, by the way, like to make the numbers the same size, so they'll add zeros to make them all the same size. There's nothing wrong with that either. You can always add zeros at the end and the front. And by doing that, you know they'll line up nicely. So if that's what you like, that's fine too. What's 7 and 3? 10. 0 carry 1. 1 and 6. And 1? 4 and 3? Here's my decimal point. 5 and 2? 7. 7.780. Now, if you were to write that number, you would write it as what? 7.78. You never put the 0 unless they say what? When do you leave that 0 there when you take it out? You always take that 0 out. Zeros at the end are useless. The only time you will leave it there if they say round your answer to nearest thousandth. If they say thousandth, how many decimal places? 3. So you have to put the 0 there. Otherwise, without the 0. Now, what about subtractions? We did addition. How about subtractions? 5.038 minus 2.11. Again, just like addition, line up the decimal point. 2.11. Again, if you want to make them the same size, you can add a 0 if you want to. And use subtracting. 0 from 8. Still 8. 1 from 3. Now 1 from 0 we can't. We got to borrow 1 from this, make it a 4, and this becomes 10. 1 from 10. 9. Here's my decimal point. 2 from 4. 2. 2.928. Let me try another subtractions. 1.02 minus 0.73. And you want to subtract. Can you subtract 3 from 2? You got to borrow 1. Well, you can't borrow 1 from this. This will turn to what? 0. This will turn to what? 9. And this will turn to 12. Here's my decimal point. 3 from 12. 9. 7 from 9. 2. Again, if you want to put a 0 in the front here, you can. You want to go without the 0, that's fine. If you leave it like this, or you write it point or 0.29, that's the same answer. Some people like it this way, others like it that way. Either one is fine, it's just preference. Estimation keeps coming back for us the whole, so far the whole semester. We just started this semester 3 or 4 weeks ago, but almost every subject we get to there's estimation. So what about if we say estimate? I have 0.17 plus 0.4 plus 0.083. Now I'm going to estimate them. The 0.17, I can say that's approximately what? 0.2. The 0.4 is good, I'll leave it alone, is equal to 0.4. It's not approximately, that's exactly the same number. But what about the other number? What is that approximately? 0.1. Yes, Angelica. And let's add them. 2 and 4, 6 and 1, 7. So approximately 0.7. Now if I was to add these numbers, if I go and add them, what do we have? 0.653. If you just add them. But notice the approximation, you're not that far from it. So the whole idea of approximation, so you can do the math much faster, much quicker. Estimate. .713 plus, or let's make it minus. We did a plus. Let's do a minus. We did a plus. Minus 0.094. Let's estimate the 0.73. That's approximately what? 0.7 minus, what's this number? 0.1, yes. What's 0.7 minus 0.1? 0.6. So that's the estimation. Let's combine more than one operation and see what will happen. .4 minus 0.17 plus 0.082. I want to do this problem. Order of operations says you must do what first? What's inside the parentheses. Let's go to the side and do what's inside the parentheses. We're not estimating here. We're doing the actual math. We adding. That's 2. What's 8 and 7? 15. 5 carry 1. 1 and 1, 2. So that number becomes 0.4 minus 0.252. Again, let's line them up. And let's subtract. Keep in mind that 4 is actually what? You can add zeros here. Especially for subtractions, maybe you want to add the zeros. Now, can we subtract 2 from 0? No, we got to borrow 1 from this. This becomes what? 3. This becomes 9, and that's a 10. 2 from 10? 8. 5 from 9? 4. 2 from 3? 1. 0.148. One more example, then we're done. Combining this operation again. .0514. Again, we have to do what? Parentheses first. So let's go to the side. 0.29. I need to subtract from it 0.0514. I'll make them the same size. I find it easier on my brain when I make them the same size. You don't have to if you don't have any problem with them. But I'm going to subtract. 4 from 0 I can. This becomes 8, 9, and that's a 10. 4 from 10. 6, 1 from 9, 8, 5 from 8, 3, 0 from 2, 0. So this problem becomes 0.813 minus 0.2386. Line them up again. 0.2386, same size, and I'm gonna subtract. 6 from 10 I can't. This becomes 2, and that's 10. 6 from 10. 4. 8 from 2 I can't. This becomes 0, and that's a 12. 8 from 12. 4. 3 from 0, you can't. This becomes what? 7, and that's a 10. 3 from 10. 7. 2 from 7. 5. 0.5744. So we add them and subtract them just like if the decimal point is not really there. And the only other difference when you're adding and subtracting numbers, we normally line them up from the right side, not here. We line them up from the decimal point. So you'll notice sometimes some of the numbers have 2, some have 3. When you line them up, they're not the same length. So I try to make them the same length. I find that that's easier for me. And that's the end of this section. The only other problems is where do we use that? Your checking account is a good example when you're balancing your checkbook or you're traveling. Sometimes you're looking at maps. The distance, how far you have to go. You got to go 6.2 miles north, then 4.9 miles south, and 3.4 miles in this direction. When you add them, that's how far you walked. These are some of the examples that you use them. Again, balancing your checkbook is probably a perfect example where decimal numbers, addition, subtraction. When you have money coming in, you add that to your balance. When you have money going out, you subtract that from your balance.